Hello, friends. Tonight, I want to talk to you about an aspect of my personal journey, what I deem to be the hardest thing that I've ever had to do, and then the result, creating a situation that was even harder. Hey, Dylan, thanks for joining, buddy. So, the story begins when I was 3. I did a blog about this last week. Hey, Gene, thanks for joining. I did a blog about this last week. The story starts with 3-year-old Chris, who fell asleep and literally an hour later woke up not breathing. Now, hey Kim, thanks for joining. I don't remember too much of the event in question. I do remember that when I woke up not breathing, the very next thing that happened is I was lying in my mum's arms in the bathroom. The shower was on, hot, producing steam to try and open my airway. My father was racing around trying to find a doctor or, calling an ambulance or whatever parents do when their children aren't breathing. And I remember really vividly looking up at my mum and I said, "Am I dying, Mummy?" And she just kind of shut her eyes and started rocking backwards and forwards. And I mean, I don't really remember too much more than that from that incident. But what I do know from having done a lot of deep work on myself and, courtesy of some shamanic journeying that I've done recently, is that it was at that point that I stopped trusting. Now, I don't believe in blaming where I'm at now. Hey, Teresa, thanks for joining. I don't believe in blaming anything that's currently happening in my life on what has already come to pass. But having said that, hey Sherry, thanks for joining, thanks for watching. My understanding is that what essentially happened that day. Hey Michelle, thanks for joining. I was getting really popular in here. Thanks guys, I'm loving all of it. What came to pass that day was that I gave up trust. I gave up trust for myself. I stopped trusting my own ability to keep myself alive. I stopped trusting that my body would keep me alive because I fell asleep and I woke up not breathing. And something that is autonomous wasn't working for me. Thank you so much for all the love. I appreciate that, guys. So, I didn't put anywhere near that much thought into it. Hey, Lil, thanks for joining. Nowhere near that much thought went into it. It was very much a subconscious thing. I stopped trusting, and in doing so, I started looking for validation of this new paradigm that I had created in myself. I needed to know that I had a legitimate reason not to trust. And the thing is, it wasn't just myself that I gave up trusting. You stop trusting yourself, that's one thing, but trust is very much like love. If you don't trust yourself, there is no space for you to exhibit trust or display trust towards anybody else or anything else. So the day that you stop trusting your own self is the day that you stop trusting everyone and everything. And in doing so, what actually happened, I started looking for reasons and validation as to why I shouldn't be trusting. And you know what happens when you look for something? Anyone want to hazard a guess? You find it. And so I became a really snoopy little kid, and I found all kinds of shit as to why I couldn't trust. I couldn't trust other people, I couldn't trust the world, and more importantly, I couldn't trust myself. I started uncovering all kinds of reason. And now, I didn't know any of this until recently. So here I am, wrecking every single relationship I've ever been in, walking away from every single job I've ever had, because I couldn't trust. I couldn't trust that anyone that I was dealing with or interacting with in my life had my interests at heart. And they say no one's got your own interests at heart except yourself. I've come to learn that that's shit. There are a lot of people out there that are really good people that are, hey Steve, thanks for joining, buddy. There's really good people in the world, and there's people that will look after you and love you as much as you do, probably more than you do sometimes, especially if you don't love or trust yourself. But you will reflect where you're currently at, and you will bring back into your life, what it is that you need to learn based on what you're seeing, what you're perceiving, what paradigms you're trying to convince yourself of. So it's It is a self-fulfilling prophecy, very much so. Brings me to where I am now. The hardest thing that I've ever had to do is to stop listening to my own mind, because the mind is a liar, and it's really unfortunate that the driving force behind the sensory organs that we use to perceive our world with is also the thing that deciphers what we're looking at, determines, hey Audrey, good evening, thank you for joining. Our mind, it perceives the world, it deciphers what it is that it's perceiving, and then it references that against everything that it's already stored. And so it's very hard to change paradigms. This is why habits are really hard to break, because we interact with the world, we have an experience, we lock that experience away, we store it in here, and then it puts a filter in place. And then from that point forward, every single thing that we do is swayed a little tiny bit by that filter. We're now looking through that filter. And so I'm spending, I was 3, so I'm spending 35 years of my life looking through filters of mistrust. And my mind is very happily sucking up every little bit it can along the way, saying, yep, look, told you, can't trust. There, store it in here, lock it away. Next thing, oh yeah, look at that. Shady, can't trust, lock it away. And the filters are getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And so eventually, you're just looking through this glass of, this filtration system that is so thick. Hey Steve, thanks for joining, buddy. And ultimately what happens is it's next to impossible to break free of it, because it's become your reality. And my reality had become that I couldn't trust anyone. Everybody was mistrustful. Everybody was acting in a way that was out to cause harm to me, or even if it wasn't causing harm, just it was all about not looking after my best interests. Hey Jared, thanks for joining, bud. And so it brings me to the point where I'm at the past couple of weeks. All of that has been shaken up. I've done so much work and so much digging, and found I've plunged into so many layers of depth within myself that it shot right past the issue that I had been working on as the root cause of my mistrust. Well and truly past that to years before, to this one little incident where 3-year-old Chris is sitting there in the middle of the night not breathing, and his parents are scrambling around trying to bring him back to life. And he gave up trusting the world. He gave up trusting himself. And then he started looking for reasons why the world's not trustworthy. It's not worth his trust. And so in addressing that, I've now had to very slowly, hey Angel, thanks for joining. In addressing that, coming to that awareness, I could do one or two things. I could turn my back on it. I could keep the paradigm in place. I could keep bashing my head against the wall. I could keep struggling against where I'm at. Or I can accept that very possibly everything that I think I know about the world is a fucking lie. And do you know that's the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life? The hardest thing is coming to an understanding that your mind is lying to you, but you told it to lie to you. You told it all along, this is what I think I believe now. So can you please find me validation for what I believe? And you know what happens when you do that? You find it, and then you store it in here, and then it becomes a filter, and then you look through it, and then you find more of it. Because how many times have you decided you wanted to buy a white 4x4, and what do you see for weeks leading up to buying it, and for weeks after you've bought it? White 4x4s. I'm not digressing for no reason. There's method to my madness. That's the thing. Every time you put a filter in place, that is all that you're going to see in the world. And so I've spent 35 years looking through filters of mistrust, and all I've seen is mistrust all around me. Why is it so difficult for me to trust people? Because I didn't trust myself. And so in working with that, it's taken me to this place where I'm now, okay, my mind can't be trusted because I put too many filters in place to tell it to look for a very particular thing. And so what I've had to do, especially for hey Graham, thanks for joining, buddy. what I've had to do, especially for a tried and true control freak like myself, born and bred, is I have had to stand in a very delicate place, and it's exhausting to stand in this place. And the place that I'm standing in is one of trusting other people and trusting other scenarios outside of myself instead of my own thoughts. Instead of listening to the thoughts that keep telling me, you can't trust this, you can't trust them, you can't trust that, I have to stop and say, nope, there is something I can't trust, but it's not that, it's you. And it starts rewriting those paradigms very slowly. So the hardest thing in the world that I've ever had to do is come to an understanding that my own mind is now lying to me. And the hardest thing that I've ever had to do after I came to that was living with that and working with that and appreciating that. I created this mind that looks for mistrust. It's now up to me, nobody else around me, to start breaking that down and changing the paradigm, and that's what it's all about. So I want to throw this out. I want to open this up. Who that's listening at the moment, who that's watching, has a similar set of paradigms in your life that you've carried with you your whole life, that you're now in a place where you're not quite sure if it's serving you, and you want to know what to do about it? Because having come through what I've just come through, and with where I'm at, I'm in a really good position to be able to talk shop on this topic. It's not believing your own sensory organs, your own mind, is very possibly the toughest thing that you will ever have to face. And I know that I've faced down a lot of difficulty in my life, and it's probably the hardest thing yet. So it's with a lot of love that I extend, myself out there. If you're in a position where you have a repetitive pattern in your life that you want to address, you want to look at, and you want to figure out, hey, Wild, thanks for joining. You have this repetitive pattern that you want to overcome, or you're not even sure, but it's causing you trouble, and you don't know why, you don't know where its genesis is. I want to help. I want to put myself out there to help that, because this is the position that I'm in now. I'm going to keep blogging on this, the experiences as I roll, because one thing I have noticed is I've always had, this one feedback system, this one voice that's inside me, that when I'm entering a situation or a relationship or a job or, whatever it is, there's always been this voice that said, you can't trust that. Can't be trusted. And I'll show you why. Here's all these filters you've put over me. Here's all these filters I'm now looking through. You can't trust this. And so, you know what? I've just completely lost my train of thought. Fear of failure and success. Absolutely, Jared. It's, that's a big thing. Is that something that that's something that you're working on at the moment, overcoming that fear of failure and success? You're kind of caught in the middle, not sure which way to go. What have you got there, Kim? I do so hard when you can't trust those that are supposed to be your unconditional support. Then you meet friends that show it, and it's wonderful, but the filters are there. Right on, and it grates on things, and I'm so fortunate. I am so lucky that I have found the one person in life that is willing to stand beside me as I do this work on myself. But you know what? I'm also in a position where I'm willing to do this work on myself. You're getting close to figuring that one out, Jared. That's cool. And if you want to talk about it, buddy, please reach out. We've got a long history together, so I'm sure there's nothing that either of us can talk about that's going to, it's only going to result in good things, you know what I mean? I doubt myself, but I know that I am smarter than what I give myself credit for. Right on. You're a very smart person. I've seen your posts. It's very astute. It's almost the same dynamic in that, when you don't exhibit trust for yourself, you come to a place of doubting everything. You doubt your intelligence. You doubt, how handsome or attractive you are. You doubt almost every aspect of yourself, and it comes back to a mistrust of yourself and then of others. But the fact is, we're all super intelligent, we're all super spiritual, we're all super attractive beings. We just have to find that thing that makes us so. I'm very blessed to have Lindsay as a spiritually aware and supportive partner. I absolutely am, because she wouldn't have had anywhere near the patience for me that she has had if she wasn't so awake within herself. And I'm super grateful that I have encountered somebody that is my twin flame. You know, she is the other half of my soul, and she has exhibited so much patience in standing beside me as I work through this issue. I mean, Jared, you've seen the stuff that Lindsay and myself have worked through since we've been together, and I think it's just it's twofold. It's the fact that she has so much love for me, and it's the fact that I have so much love for her that I'm willing to put myself into any measure of difficulty, or, you know, stand on any hard line to overcome any of these issues that I would rather not look at. Kim, I have insecurities because I don't trust myself due to the mistakes I have made. I know it's madness, but it's there. Cool. So, I mean, I don't want to belittle where you're at by saying that's a simple one to fix, because it's simple, but it's not easy. You know, the fact is that it's just a matter of changing the way that we look at mistakes, from mistake to learning experience. And you haven't made any mistakes. You've lived exactly what you've meant to live, to teach you what you've learned. And if you haven't learnt from it yet, then it's not a mistake. It's just a lesson still waiting to be learnt. And I mean, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, the reality of the universe is it will keep throwing at us what it is that we need to learn until we learn it. And we will keep making the same mistakes until we get through what it is that, you know, we have to get through. So I think that's what I was saying earlier when I lost my train of thought, and you guys jumped in and saved me. Thank you. I was working on, you know, this very thought and this very process that I can't trust my own mind. I have to now extend trust outside of myself. And so it's a really difficult process. And I'm sitting having lunch with Lindsay yesterday, and I said to her, you know what, boo? I'm now in a place where I'm treating my own mind the same way that I have treated you through our relationship. And she threw her arms around me and gave me a big kiss and smiled, and she said, I'm so grateful you finally got to this point. You know, because the reality is, I've always looked at her with a little bit of, what are you doing? Okay, you're texting. Who are you texting? And it's driven her crazy time and again, rightly so. But you know what? The table turned yesterday, and we're sitting there at lunch, and it just dawned on me, it clicked. And the click was, I now look at my own thought process with that mistrust, not the person who has stood by me every single day of my life, no matter how much shit I have put her through for 2 years now. Over 2 years. And so, where it goes from here, who knows? You know, it's the most difficult thing, living with and retraining a mind that is so immersed in its own filters. But we'll get there. We're all going to get there, you know? It's just a matter of walking each other home. And that's what it's all about. So we're all going to get there. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I love you all. I hope you have a fantastic night. And I'm going to keep blogging on this. Like I said, I'm going to keep these... I'm going to keep this train of thought going. Hey, Casey, good to see you. I'm going to keep this train of thought going because I feel like there's a lot to offer here, and it's not just issues of mistrust, but, you know, in terms of finding the origin or the genesis of particular issues so that we can look at it. It's all about hugging the chaos. You know, as long as we refuse to look at something, it's going to sit in there, and we're going to keep bumping into it every day of our lives in life. And it's going to keep fouling us until we get to a point where we say, you know what, come here, give me a big hug, you. I know what it is that you're trying to teach me. See you later. And it's gone just like that. No more mistrust, no more anger, no more addiction, no more whatever it is that you're stuck with at the moment. And that's what we come down to. So I know most of you guys already do, but if you haven't, check out the blog, hugyourchaos.com. subscribe. We'll send you a couple of emails a week with the updates, the newest posts on the blog. We have got t-shirts and tank tops, Hug Your Chaos with that cool little guy on the front, and hashtag Hug Your Chaos on the back. My book, there it is, is available. It's available on Amazon. It's available as a signed copy through me. I still have some left, so if you want to have a signed copy, Bandits Here to Photobomb, reach out, send me a message and let me know, and I will give you the information as to how that happens. Back it up. All right. Have a great night, everyone, and I will talk to you soon. Mwah.